The secret plans for King Charles's funeral are reportedly already tearing the royal family apart. According to the Daily Beast's Tom Sykes, few but the most ardent optimists really believe Charles will be on the throne for as long as his mother was, and the planning and positioning for the reign of King William V has begun.
The death of King Charles III will mark a historic turning point for the British monarchy and the world. As the reigning monarch of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth realms,
funeral plans for the current monarch, King Charles III, are already in place and being continuously updated, it seems.
His passing will initiate a meticulously planned series of events known as Operation Menai Bridge. Beyond the ceremonial changes, his death will also bring shifts in public sentiment, political discourse, and the future of the monarchy. Here are the top 10 things that will happen when King Charles dies. Number 1. Operation Menai Bridge. Operation Menai Bridge is the official plan that gets activated the moment King Charles dies. This procedure lays out all the steps required to handle everything from the initial announcement to the funeral's final details. Handlers within the royal household and top government figures already know their specific roles, so there isn't any confusion when the news breaks. For instance, certain staff members focus on communicating with the Prime Minister, while others coordinate the timing of public announcements. Efficiency is the cornerstone of Operation Menai Bridge. Detailed schedules, sometimes labeled D+1, D+2, and so forth, guide tasks on each day following the king's passing. This helps officials manage events like the lying in state, various religious services, and even the funeral procession route. Without this plan, the scope of these arrangements could spiral into chaos, especially with media outlets clamoring for updates and dignitaries from around the globe preparing to attend ceremonies. Despite sounding clinical, Operation Menai Bridge also takes sensitivity into account.
His aides are regularly reviewing copies of the several hundred-page document outlining his royal funeral plans, dubbed Operation Menai Bridge. The 75-year-old monarch has remained largely out of the limelight since announcing his cancer.
It ensures that public gatherings, tributes, and family moments of mourning all blend smoothly. In that sense, it strikes a balance between the nation's need to grieve and the monarchy's formal obligations. Many might not even notice the intricate orchestration behind each day's proceedings, but it's this structure that provides a calm, organized framework. By laying out precisely what happens and when, Operation Menai Bridge keeps everyone on the same page at a time when emotions run high. Number 2. Private and public notifications. Once King Charles dies, select people are privately informed before the news reaches the public. This ensures that close relatives and top officials, such as the Prime Minister, don't learn of the king's death through rumors or news bulletins. A short window exists where hush-hush communications happen behind the scenes, allowing those in charge to prepare the official statement and key logistical details. Soon after these private notifications, Buckingham Palace releases a formal announcement. Traditionally, this may involve affixing a notice to the palace gates, plus immediate publication on the royal website and social media. Television channels and radio stations usually cut into scheduled programming with the news, then shift to somber, respectful coverage. You'll notice presenters wearing darker attire as a symbolic gesture, and the national mood often changes within hours. People react in different ways. Many feel genuine sadness, recalling King Charles's public endeavors or personal anecdotes they might have heard about him. Others, less attached, might simply acknowledge it as a big historical moment. Still, crowds typically gather near places like Buckingham Palace, laying flowers and handwritten notes. Local authorities team up with the royal household to manage these spontaneous gatherings and keep everything orderly. Number 3. Prince William becomes king.
As my heir, William now assumes the Scottish titles which have meant so much to me. He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall.
The monarchy revolves around the concept of no vacancy on the throne, meaning that the crown instantly passes to Prince William upon King Charles's death. There's no break. It happens automatically, guided by age-old rules ensuring stability at a chaotic time. While William's new role is legally effective right away, Certain formalities, like public proclamations, will follow to acknowledge him as king in an official, ceremonial manner. Emotionally, this transition isn't simple. William will be grieving his father, but he also has to step into immense responsibilities. Advisors, palace officials, and government liaisons help him navigate everything from giving the first televised address to coordinating family appearances at memorial services. Meanwhile, Kate Middleton assumes the position of Queen Consort, offering William her support while also adjusting to a heightened public profile. The rest of the royal family feels the shift too. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis move up in the line of succession. Extended members, such as Prince Harry or Princess Beatrice, also find their own positions updated. These changes sometimes affect day-to-day life, like who attends key engagements or represents the crown internationally. Despite the underlying sadness, the new king is expected to reassure the country almost immediately. People look for stability, continuity, and a sense that the monarchy remains a comforting constant. William's actions, small and large, will be scrutinized by the press and public, who'll want to see how his vision might differ from previous reigns. At this delicate moment, his promise to keep tradition alive, combined with his modern perspectives, shapes how the public embraces him as the next monarch. Number 4. Accession Council and Formal Proclamation. Although Prince William assumes the crown at once, the Accession Council meets to formally declare his new status. Gathering at St. James's Palace, this council typically includes high-profile government officials, religious leaders, and other key figures. Their job is to expedite the legal recognition of William as king, ensuring the monarchy's continuity is acknowledged not just by tradition, but by constitutional process. The session unfolds in 2 segments. First, council members convene without William present to confirm the passing of King Charles and the rightful succession. Then, William appears for the second part, where he might address the council, expressing gratitude and pledging commitment to his duties. While concise, these statements carry a weight of solemnity, blending modern politics with centuries-old rites. Afterward, a formal proclamation is read in public, often from a balcony at St. James's Palace. Heralds in ceremonial garb announce William as the new monarch.
Our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the center ground.
This scene can feel like a direct link to medieval customs, though nowadays, news channels and social media circulate the information faster than any public reading could. Even so, the spectacle's historic flair draws onlookers who gather to witness this slice of living history. Similar proclamations may occur around the UK, underscoring unity across nations like Scotland and Wales. While these events don't change William's status, since he's automatically the king, they reinforce the monarchy's deep roots. Media coverage, often featuring experts explaining the tradition's background, reminds viewers that this formal step is more than pomp. It's a cornerstone of stability, affirming that the baton has been passed seamlessly in the eyes of both government and the people. Number 5. National mourning period. Following King Charles's death, officials typically declare a period of national mourning, marking a stretch of days when the country collectively honors his memory. During this time, flags on government buildings and many other institutions fly at half-mast. Public events, concerts, and sporting matches may be postponed or scaled back as a gesture of respect. TV schedules shift to more solemn programming, often featuring tributes to Charles's life and interviews with those who knew him. In communities around the UK, people might attend special services at churches, mosques, or temples where prayers or reflections on the late king are shared. Soap operas and entertainment shows occasionally adjust storylines or broadcasting schedules to mirror the national mood. Some residents choose to dress in black or wear small black ribbons, showing solidarity with the royal family's grief. Meanwhile, the royal family itself reflects this tone in all public appearances. They may limit their official engagements to memorial events or quiet gatherings with the public. At these gatherings, you'll often see lines of mourners offering flowers and heartfelt letters, creating a poignant blend of sorrow and admiration. The new king, William, along with Queen Consort Kate, might tour parts of the country to meet well-wishers, acknowledging local tributes while standing strong in the face of personal and national sadness. Outside the public sphere, government departments adhere to specific guidelines about communication, ensuring consistent messaging. Even parliamentary business can be reduced during key mourning days, underscoring the gravity of losing a head of state. When the mourning period ends, it transitions the country toward the funeral and final committal services, where the most profound expressions of farewell take place. Number 6. Lying in state at Westminster Hall. One of the most moving traditions during a monarch's passing is the lying in state at Westminster Hall. In this centuries-old setting, King Charles's coffin would be placed on a raised platform called a catafalque, typically draped in the royal standard. Guards from various military units stand vigil in rotating shifts, maintaining reverent silence. Sometimes members of the royal family join them for brief, solemn vigils, heightening the emotional importance of the moment. This event grants the public a direct opportunity to pay their respects. Long queues can stretch for hours as individuals from all walks of life wait to pass by the coffin. Some people regard it as a civic duty to physically witness and acknowledge the passing of a monarch they've grown up hearing about. Others seek a personal closure, wanting to reflect on Charles's life of service or his personal passions, such as environmental advocacy. The atmosphere inside Westminster Hall is hauntingly calm, with many visitors pausing briefly to bow or curtsy. Photography is typically restricted, preserving the space's solemnity. News cameras often film the line itself, revealing a cross-section of society: children, seniors, tourists, and British citizens from every background. It's an extraordinary display of unity, a solemn pilgrimage that transcends everyday social barriers. Because the lying in state only lasts a few days, crowds grow quickly. Officials coordinate security carefully.
A stunning security breach when a man inside Westminster Hall rushed towards the Queen's coffin,
Sometimes providing timed entry passes or special lanes to manage the flow. Number 7. State funeral at Westminster Abbey. A state funeral is usually held for a reigning monarch at Westminster Abbey, a place that's intrinsically bound to England's royal heritage. The spectacle begins with a procession, often involving pallbearers and senior members of the family walking behind the coffin. Thousands line the streets, hoping to glimpse the passing cortege. Some wave national flags, others stand in hushed respect, absorbing a moment that will dominate historical memory for decades to come. Inside the abbey, the scene is both grand and solemn. Heads of state, foreign royals, religious leaders, and others fill the pews, representing a global cross-section. The Archbishop of Canterbury, or another high-ranking cleric, typically leads the service, which might blend Anglican rituals with tributes to Charles's life. Prayers, hymns, or readings capture his dedication to duty, his personal enthusiasms, and the legacy he passed on. Cameras capture every detail for a worldwide audience. Commentary from historians and royal experts helps viewers grasp the event's deeper context, tying Charles's funeral to the constitutional and cultural tapestry of Britain. For many at home, it's a day of collective reflection. Even if they never felt personally connected to the monarchy, they recognize that a central figure in public life is receiving a final, dignified farewell. Once the service concludes, the coffin is carefully carried outside. Another short procession may happen, after which it continues onward for a private burial. People lingering in central London watch quietly, some shedding tears, others simply standing in thoughtful silence. The ceremony's formal end signals a national shift, where the mourning peaks, then gradually gives way to the formalities that follow, including the final committal and the monarchy's transition under King William. Number 8. Burial at Windsor. After the funeral service at Westminster Abbey, King Charles's coffin generally travels to Windsor for a more intimate committal ceremony. St. George's Chapel is a common resting place for British monarchs, offering a serene and historical setting. This smaller gathering focuses on immediate family members and close friends. In contrast to the Abbey's worldwide broadcast, the scene in Windsor is often more private, aiming to provide genuine finality for Charles's loved ones. Many viewers might see only snippets of this ceremony on television, if at all, since the family understandably values privacy. Despite the subdued atmosphere, the event carries deep symbolic weight. Charles's coffin is gently lowered into the royal vault or a nearby resting space, uniting him with generations who walked the same corridors. The chapel's stained glass windows and ancient stone walls lend an almost timeless feel, underscoring that while national pageantry has ended, the monarchy's family unit is still processing a personal loss. In the days that follow, the Windsor grounds may see an uptick in visitors leaving flower bouquets and notes. Some might pause outside the chapel to reflect on Charles's contributions, or simply observe a moment of silence. Over time, official tours resume, and tourists glimpse the chapel where many monarchs lie. The personal resonance of this final farewell lingers, marking the last formal stage of the series of events honoring Charles's memory. Number 9. Revisions to official titles and roles. The monarchy is a structure built on hierarchy and heritage, so King Charles's death triggers updates in titles and responsibilities. The moment William becomes king, Kate takes on the title of Queen Consort, while their children, and other family members, see shifts in their positions. For example, Prince George now stands as heir apparent, placing him first in line for the throne. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis move accordingly in the order of succession. Beyond these headline changes, there's a ripple of administrative adjustments. William's existing titles, like Prince of Wales, might transfer or be redrawn altogether. Weeks or months of behind-the-scenes work follow, with websites, official stationery, and ceremonial regalia all requiring updates. Even currency and postage stamps will eventually swap out Charles's image for William's, though that tends to be a slow, phased process to avoid unnecessary expense. Patronages also need reassignments. Charles might have been patron to numerous charities and organizations spanning environmental causes, the arts, and more. Those responsibilities could either pass to William or be dispersed among senior royals willing to carry on that legacy. It's a delicate arrangement, balancing tradition with modern public interests. Some changes are subtle, like shifting seat placements at royal ceremonies or altering how announcements are worded. Others are very visible, reflecting the entire monarchy's shift under a new reign. This shakeup can feel abrupt, especially for people familiar with Charles's role for so many years. Number 10. Commonwealth notifications and reactions. Finally, when King Charles dies, the ripple effect extends far beyond the UK. Many countries in the Commonwealth, some that still have the British monarch as head of state, respond by lowering flags and entering their own periods of official mourning. Leaders in Canada, Australia, and elsewhere make respectful announcements, acknowledging both Charles's role and the transition to King William. While some nations follow UK traditions closely, others adapt them to fit local cultural norms. In certain Commonwealth realms, the changing monarch can rekindle debates about constitutional arrangements. People who favor becoming a republic may use this moment to argue that their country should take a new path. Meanwhile, those who appreciate tradition maintain that staying connected to the British crown preserves a shared heritage. These discussions aren't always toppling the status quo immediately, but they can gain momentum whenever a major royal shift occurs. Even in countries that have already become republics but remain part of the Commonwealth, officials often convey condolences and hold memorials or prayer services, especially if King Charles previously visited or sponsored causes there. Colonial history isn't forgotten, yet there's typically a sense of respect tied to the Queen or King's figurehead role. Joanna of Castile, the tragic queen. Joanna of Castile was a queen of Spain in the 16th century. She was born into a family with a long history of intermarriage, which is known as inbreeding. This practice was common among European royal families, who sought to preserve their wealth and power by marrying within their own families. Joanna's parents were also closely related, and her grandparents were related as well. This family history of inbreeding likely contributed to Joanna's mental health issues. Joanna's marriage to her cousin Philip, also known as Philip the Handsome, was arranged by her parents. This type of marriage was common among royal families, but it can lead to genetic problems and health issues. Joanna and Philip had 6 children together, but their marriage was tainted with turmoil and instability. Joanna suffered from mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and paranoia. She became more reclusive and withdrawn, and her behavior became more erratic. Joanna's mental health issues likely had a genetic component, given her family's history of inbreeding. Her parents and grandparents had also suffered from mental health issues, and it is possible that these problems were passed down through the generations. While she had these health problems, Joanna was still a devoted mother and wife, and she was very involved in shaping the future of Spain. Joanna is not the only sovereign whose life has been really difficult because of her family's inbreeding. Christian VII of Denmark didn't have it easy either. Christian VII of Denmark, a life of hallucinations. Christian VII was the King of Denmark from 1766 to 1808. His family history of inbreeding most likely contributed to Christian VII's mental health issues, including his hallucinations. Christian VII's life was marked by a series of mental health problems, including hallucinations, paranoia, and depression. He suffered from these issues throughout his life, and they made it difficult for him to perform his royal duties. Christian VII's hallucinations were very severe, and he often saw and heard things that were not there. These hallucinations were likely caused by his family's history of inbreeding, which can lead to genetic problems and mental health issues. Even with his mental health issues, Christian VII was a kind and gentle person, and he was loved by his people. Sadly, Christian VII's mental health issues made it difficult for him to rule effectively, and he was eventually forced to abdicate the throne in favor of his son, Frederick VI. Louis XIV of France, the Sun King with a history of inbreeding. Louis XIV was the King of France from 1643 to 1715. He is often called the Sun King because of his powerful and bright personality. Louis XIV was a member of the Bourbon family, which had a long history of practicing consanguineous marriages. This means that they married within their own family, often between cousins or other close relatives. This practice, known as inbreeding, can lead to genetic problems and health issues. Louis XIV's parents were closely related, and his grandparents were also related, which likely contributed to his own health problems. Louis XIV suffered from a range of health issues throughout his life, including digestive problems, arthritis, and gangrene. These health issues may have been caused or exacerbated by his family's history of inbreeding. If you think this is the worst sovereign case of inbreeding, wait until you hear the next one. Cleopatra, the Egyptian queen with a history of inbreeding. The iconic Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, ruling from 51 BC until her death in 30 BC. She was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was a Greek family that ruled Egypt after the death of Alexander the Great. Cleopatra's family practiced a form of marriage called sibling marriage, where brothers and sisters would marry each other to maintain power and wealth. This practice, also known as inbreeding, can lead to genetic problems and health issues. Cleopatra's family had a long history of sibling marriage, which likely affected her health. Her parents were brother and sister, and her grandparents were also closely related. This means that Cleopatra's genetic makeup was likely compromised, making her more susceptible to illnesses and health problems. Even with these potential health issues, Cleopatra was known for her intelligence, beauty, and charisma. She was a skilled diplomat and leader, and greatly influenced Egypt's relationships with other ancient civilizations. Cleopatra's health issues are not well documented, but it is believed that she may have suffered from a range of problems, including epilepsy, migraines, and infertility. These health issues may have been caused by her family's history of inbreeding, which can lead to genetic mutations and increased susceptibility to illnesses. Ludwig II of Bavaria, the Mad King. Ludwig II, also known as the Mad King, was a king of Bavaria in the 19th century. He was born with a rare condition that affected his physical and mental health. This condition was likely caused by centuries of inbreeding among European royalty. In Ludwig's case, his parents were first cousins, which increased the chances of genetic problems. Ludwig's rare condition affected his behavior and decision-making. He became increasingly reclusive and withdrawn, preferring to spend his time alone in his castles rather than attending to his royal duties. He also developed a passion for building grand and elaborate castles, which drained the Bavarian treasury. Despite his mental health issues, Ludwig was a very talented and creative person. He was a patron of the arts and a supporter of the famous composer Richard Wagner. Ludwig's life ended tragically. He was declared insane and removed from power, and he died under mysterious circumstances in 1886. Ferdinand I of Austria, the epileptic emperor. Ferdinand I was the Emperor of Austria from 1835 to 1848. He was born into a family with a long history of inbreeding. His family's history of inbreeding likely contributed to Ferdinand's health issues, including his epilepsy. Ferdinand's epilepsy was a significant problem throughout his life. He suffered from frequent seizures, which made it difficult for him to perform his royal duties. Apart from his epilepsy, Ferdinand also suffered from other health issues, including mental retardation and physical disabilities. In 1848, Ferdinand was forced to abdicate the throne in favor of his nephew, Franz Joseph, who would go on to rule Austria for nearly 68 years. Ferdinand spent the remainder of his life in retirement, living in Prague and then in Vienna, where he died on June 29, 1875. Now, here's where our list gets worse. John I of Portugal, a king with many mistresses. John I was the king of Portugal from 1385 to 1433. He was a member of the House of Aviz, a powerful family that ruled Portugal for many years. John I was known for his many mistresses and children out of wedlock. He had several children with his wife, Philippa of Lancaster, but he also had many other children with his mistresses. This was not unusual for a king at that time, and it did not necessarily have anything to do with his family's history of inbreeding. John I's family did have a history of inbreeding, but his parents were closely related, and his grandparents were also related. This practice of marrying within the family was common among European royal families, who sought to preserve their wealth and power by marrying within their own families. While John I's family history of inbreeding may have contributed to some health problems, no one knows whether it had any direct impact on his behavior or his decision to have many mistresses. King Charles II of Spain, the inbred monarch. King Charles II was the last Habsburg ruler of Spain, reigning from 1665 to 1700. In King Charles II's inbreeding case, his parents were uncle and niece, and his grandparents were also closely related. This family history of inbreeding likely contributed to King Charles II's physical and mental limitations. King Charles II suffered from a range of health problems, including epilepsy, paralysis, and mental retardation. He was also physically weak and had many deformities. These health issues made it difficult for King Charles II to perform his royal duties, and he was often unable to make decisions or take action. But King Charles II was a kind and gentle person, and he was loved by his people. Sadly, his inability to produce an heir led to a succession crisis, which ultimately resulted in the end of the Habsburg dynasty in Spain. Charles II's reign is mostly remembered as a period of decline for Spain, which had once been a powerful and dominant world power. The country was plagued by economic problems, corruption, and internal conflicts. King Charles II's physical and mental limitations made it difficult for him to address these problems, and he was often at the mercy of his advisors and nobles. Remember Ludwig II of Bavaria? Well, he isn't the only king on our list that has to live with madness. George III of Great Britain, a life of madness. George III was the King of England from 1760 to 1820. George III's life and reign are mostly remembered for his periods of mental instability. He suffered from symptoms such as confusion, agitation, and delusions. These episodes became more frequent and severe as he got older. During these periods, George III was unable to perform his royal duties, and his son, the future George IV, took over as regent. While he was dealing with his mental health issues, George III had many achievements during his reign, including the expansion of the British Empire and the establishment of the Church of England. George III's madness has been the subject of much speculation and debate. Some historians believe that his symptoms were caused by a condition called porphyria, which is a genetic disorder that can cause mental and physical symptoms. Others believe that his madness was caused by a combination of factors, including his family's history of inbreeding, his stressful life as king, and his personal struggles. Alfonso XIII of Spain, a rare case of endogamy. Alfonso XIII was the King of Spain from 1886 to 1931. His family history of endogamy led to a rare case of inbreeding, which can cause genetic problems and health issues.